who everybody is. Jill's iPhone, is your last name Sharak?
Yes.
Right. And then Miss Glavich. And then I have somebody here. It says Coley. What case are you here for?
Sorry, what'd you say?
Not you, ma'am, and not Sierra. There's a third party here. It says Coley. I need to know who they are, what case they're here for. Or they can keep not saying anything, and I'm going to boot them to the waiting room. All right, that's what we'll do. All right, so all parties are here on this matter, 230293SC. This is a small claims case. So essentially, two things to explain, a couple of things about small claims. Small claims means that we are here without attorneys. We're trying to resolve this short of having to involve attorneys or involving a jury trial in front of the district court judges to have this resolved in small claims. We also cannot ask for more than $6,500, although we still are quite below that. If the parties are here and ready to proceed to this in small claims, then the first thing I'm going to do is swear you both in. If you want to raise your right hands. Swear or affirm that any testimony you give here today would be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I might hop around here a little bit. I don't usually get too much information on this ahead of time, but it seems to me that, and do you mind if I just call you by first names? Might be easier than messing up last names.
That's fine.
That Sierra was renting a commercial space from Jill?
Correct.
Is that relationship over?
Correct.
All right, so you're no longer renting, but that when Jill went back to the property, discovered that some possessions that were there were no longer there and is now suing, saying that those possessions had a certain dollar amount and that Sierra was responsible for getting rid of them or whatever happened to them. Is that the extent of your claim? Okay. So I did see, well, first of all, can you explain the nature of this space to me? Commercial space, and what else was there?
It's a very old building built in the late 1800s. So it has that traditional storefront with the glass at the front of the door. Okay. And when you open the door, you walk in, and if you turn around, above the door was a big, huge open area that was really out of reach. It was way up there. And I had shoved my Christmas box, other boxes up there since I didn't need access to them. And I covered it all with grass cloth so that you wouldn't see it from the shop. And Sierra, when she moved in, didn't like the grass cloth and it'd be okay to cover it with something different. And I said, sure, that's not a problem. Now, when I showed her the space, I told her and pointed out that space up there and specifically said, not, don't mess with the stuff that's up there. That's my stuff.
Okay. I saw you attached a copy of the entire lease, it looks, between the parties. So just to be clear, the lease didn't actually address this.
Correct.
Okay. And then how long did this lease last?
I sold the building, so it ended, I'm trying to remember when it out. I think it was July of...
I'm just trying to get an understanding whether this was a year, 10 years, how long was this relationship?
It was about a year. It was not long.
The lease was signed
what
for
you're
1 year.
Saying is you guys clearly had a conversation about the stuff that you were storing in this space, that it was something that you wanted to be kept and that was not part of, the store.
Yes.
And then, Sierra, could you explain to me what happened to these possessions?
I can definitely give you my, my recollection of everything. So we moved in, signed a lease on January 1 to turn the commercial unit that she had into a nutrition club. So we had blank drywall. We had pretty much a lot of construction and updating that we were doing to it as well too. As she had stated, yes, I did replace that paneling is what I did. I took down the tiki grass. There was tiki grass up there is what was covering it. So I don't know if that's what she's referring to as the green wall or grass or whatever. But going with the theme that I was going for with my design, that didn't fit, so we took that down. Now I don't know if the previous tenant before me had things that were stored up there as well too. But there was also not just those boxes, but other boxes of garbage and other things that were gotten rid of up there. To my memory, I never had, oh, go ahead.
What did you replace the tiki grass with?
It was like a paneling, just a paneling that we got from Menards. We put it in front of there. It's probably still there if you go in there.
Okay.
So when we did that, we had taken everything out. I have no memory of her telling me this conversation. I'm not the type of person that is going to maliciously get rid of someone's stuff or destroy it or go out of my way. Jill and I were in contact quite a bit throughout this whole process. So we removed what was up there and we got rid of it. If that was up there, it was removed. If it was not, I couldn't tell you. I don't have any memory of that specific box that she is talking about because there was so much stuff that we cleaned out of this space.
All right. So is that true, Jill, that there was more than just this box of your possessions? There was other things up there as well?
I had several boxes up there. It wasn't just one box.
All right, but do you agree there was things up there that were not yours or things you didn't want to keep?
No, there, to my recollection, there was nothing else up there but my stuff.
Are you talking about the tiki covering that was up there for what you're referring to? Or was that put up there by you or was that put up by the tenant before me? That tiki covering that was up there? Because there was, yep, the tiki covering.
The covering had been up there and I just put my boxes up there and then recovered it, put it back.
Okay, so what I'm saying is someone else had gone up there after you had put those Christmas things in and there was more stuff up there. Jill, I don't have, you know, like there was nothing specifically taken out of there that could trigger.
Here's the problem. Let me tell you a few things. So in other words, what you're saying, Sierra, is there was nothing that was taken and then sold or given to someone who wanted it. Essentially, it was thrown out.
Yes, absolutely. We were cleaning this space so that I could get my business open. It wasn't anything taken and sold for profit, taken and sold for my personal gain by any means. It was.
And is this stuff visible from inside the store if you just turned around and were looking out?
No, it's covered with that. It was covered with that covering.
So there was no way for me to have known what she was specifically talking about if she had even told me that.
I will tell you this, Jill, the problem here is you're in control of a lease, and that lease can be one paragraph, it can be 500 pages.
Yeah.
Something like this should have been spelled out in the lease, even if you handwrite it in. It's just a very odd situation where someone would lease a commercial space to put a commercial interest in, and yet there's still possessions in that space that belong to the leaseholder. I thought these were like up in an attic or something, not actually in the space.
Sort of an attic space. No reason why she should have even needed to be up in there. It made no difference to her space whatsoever what was up there because it wasn't even visual. You couldn't even see.
But here's the other problem. I just want to let you know. I know that you went to painstaking lengths to find every item that you had in those boxes and therefore try to evaluate them. eBay is not how we would reach valuation. eBay is what somebody is hoping they can get for something like that. Real
I,
value would be a fraction of that.
I agree with that. I just used this as a start because I didn't know how else to rough value. So this was just a starting point so that I could have an idea of where it was at.
Can you just tell me why it is you would store them there instead of at your house or some other
Yeah,
property you own where you keep all the rest of your stuff?
I lived upstairs of that building on the top floor. And I needed extra storage space because I didn't have enough room up there to have everything. And when I renovated the downstairs, I found this space, the cloth, and thought, perfect to put these boxes in here because nobody will even see it. It really,
I mean, see, here's your problem is in a heartbeat, we would be sitting here just trying to put a dollar value on possessions that you lost because of this activity. If it had anything to do with Sierra trying to have these possessions convert to somehow an advantage to her.
well, now
But what she's telling me is simply in the process of either clearing out the space or, you know, adding value to the space by making it consistent with whatever her version of theme for the space would be, this stuff was thrown out because it didn't seem to have a value or importance or
all
any
she had,
sort of memory or trigger for anything in the lease or anything you guys had talked about.
right, I hear what you're saying, but all she had to do was change the covering. It wouldn't have changed, all the stuff in there wouldn't have had any effect on her business space. And also when I had the first conversation with her and found out that it had been disposed, she told me that her mother took everything and gave it to the Goodwill.
Well, yeah, essentially without advantage to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I
So,
also add something into this, please?
yes.
So the
I
only
just mean
reason,
that's why the word theft or destruction of property is a very strong word. You actually can't even sue someone for what's called an intentional tort. But I wanted to hear it. I don't find that it would be an intentional tort. So it is something you could sue for in small claims. I just have to find that there's some, you know, path to damages here that makes sense. What were you saying?
so I would just like to add, so in addition to all of this, the only reason why Jill ever reached out to get these belongings out of up there was because the roof in the building was leaking. And she texted me and had asked me, this is how this whole conversation came about, if she could come in and remove that stuff from up there so they didn't get damaged from the water that was leaking in through the roof. Now, mind you, this has been almost 2 years since this has even happened. For one, I don't even have that phone, nor am I able to pull those messages or that conversation because it has been so long of a period of time. For two, I think that's kind of substantial to this because if those things were up there, they would have been damaged from the water damage from the building anyways.
They're all in plastic totes. So I doubt they would have been to be
Yeah,
on the,
but so here's the thing. So let's just sort of recreate that conversation if we can. She's like, hey, I want to come to the store, you know, when we can find time. I need
Yeah.
to pull some boxes out of there because there may be, you know, it's not a good place to store them anymore. And then what happened? She
And I
came
was, then caught very off guard because I'm like, Jill, I cleared everything that was up there. In my memory, there is nothing specific. I cleared everything that was up there. And then
That's
I'm
what I
trying to
mean by
figure
I
out
don't.
what happened, you know.
That's what I mean by I really don't think what we're dealing with here is any sort of, you know, nefarious purpose. It's just that the problem is Jill had possessions, which she wishes she still had. They're gone because of some activity that you did. And what do we say the value of that is? And then the problem is, you know, essentially how you value these is exactly what would happen there, sort of thrift or donation value. I mean, you really would only be dealing with, you know, hundreds of dollars, low end hundreds. That's kind of, see, the problem is, especially like sentimental things. Oh, this was grandma's nativity set. It's very important to me. We can't price it according to how important it is to you. We have to use a more objective sort of third party standard. I'm not sure there's much, if any, resale value to essentially a lot of, I mean, it seems like a lot of those were either sort of Christmas things or sort of vintage toys, I guess I'd call some of them. But
Well,
you know, that's
out of it, there was no price because they were things my kids had made when they were little. There were photographs, things that are irreplaceable.
that's what I mean. Very difficult to put a price on,
Yeah,
you know. What was the terms of the lease? What was the monthly back and forth?
$700 a month rent, plus
All right.
half
And
these down there.
And security
Half the
deposit
what?
was paid up front.
half the what? You blanked out on that word. Was it utilities?
Yeah, utilities and $700 a month.
And you guys had no issues?
I didn't
It's
think
not
we
like you think any money is owed from, you know,
No.
parts of the lease or anything like that.
could be in every other aspect. She was a good renter. She was very communicative. I tried my best to be a good landlord, the best I could. I tried to get things fixed, you know, whenever things popped up, the best that I could address them. And yeah,
Well, I tell you what, here's the thing. Like I said, the real problem here is valuation. And I know that you're going to be disappointed with the valuation, but it's just sort of how this works because they're not necessarily, you know, like it's real easy for us to value a used automobile. I go on to Kelly Blue Book, punch all the numbers in and see what they say third party value is. It's a lot harder on these sort of niche items like this. Here's the thing. I don't want to penalize Miss Shark of, you know, spending her $94 to get us here to get an answer to this, because that's what she paid out of pocket between filing fees and serving. I do think there's an issue here with possessions that she normally would have been able to go and take possession of. She can't, and that it's based upon activity by Miss Glavich. But I think that we're really just sort of shooting the moon on what sort of valuation to place on this. Essentially, here's what I have to do. I have to make a decision that makes you both slightly unhappy. In other words, I'm going to explain to you this first. Either party has a right to say, I don't agree with what just happened in there. I think that was too much money or not enough money that was ordered as part of that judgment. If you disagree with my finding, you have the ability to take this and say, I want a different kind of hearing. I want to go to general civil in front of the district court judges. That generally involves the addition of attorneys. So to tell you the truth, with these dollar amounts, you'd eat up the dollar amount trying to pay an attorney to go do that. But either party would have the right to say that. That being said, essentially, we order two things. One is damages and one is costs. Like I said, is $94 that just by bringing a lawsuit here is what plaintiff paid out of pocket. She is able to ask for that as part of any judgment for recuperation. But the dollar amount I'm going to put the damages on is all the way down to $250. So essentially what I'm ordering is $250 in damages, $94 in costs. And then I want to make sure that you understand that, of course, Ms. Glavich could say, I don't think I should have to pay anything. I didn't know that this was possessions. I wasn't supposed to do anything other than clean them out. And Ms. Sharach certainly has the option to say, I think that's too low for what was in those boxes that I'll never get back again. Either one of you could appeal. If you choose not to appeal, then this judgment, the only way to make that judgment satisfied is for defendant to pay plaintiff those dollar amounts. You will get copies of this shipped out to you in the mail, but you don't have to wait for that. You can either get on the horn to each other to satisfy that judgment, or one of you could get going with appealing this finding, saying, I don't agree with what just happened.
can I ask
You both understand those rights?
I do.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Can I ask you?
Yes.
I'm referring to statute 62919.
I did want to bring that up. Ma'am, that would be if you were in what's called general civil. In other words, and I'll give you the 2 minutes rather than just giving you a fast yes or no. So this is small claims. Small claims is not by the rules of evidence, but the only thing you can actually get are what are called out-of-pocket damages and your costs. So like you couldn't sue someone here for attorney's fees or for the mileage to drive back and forth to court to have to come here, or intentional affliction of emotional distress. A lot of the things you maybe have heard rattling around in court TV. Now in general civil, you can sue for all those things. You can get treble damages, especially if there was a like a tort involved. But that statute is specifically for civil court, which is why you have to have attorneys. This one is more like, let's just let two people come in, they tell their sides of the story, the magistrate, picks something. It's a lot less formal. We kind of just let you talk and work things out. But that statute is applicable, but not applicable in small claims. I wanted to tell you that right out of the gate because I knew you were looking at that.
I just tried. That's all. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
And you are right. It's just you're right for a different kind of court. All right?
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and release you. Everybody's all set with what their options are at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.